Okay, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. I am Nina Newman. I'm the Director of Admission and Financial Access here at King. I'm really excited to share some deeper information about two of our fabulous programs, our World Languages programs and our Global Education program, both of which start in the lower school and go all the way up through 12th grade and beyond as our students carry these gifts with them. I'm going to start by just having my colleagues who are joining me today introduce themselves, and then I'll ask a few questions, and I want to make sure you get your questions answered. So if you would like to use the Q&A feature at the bottom of the screen, please feel free to drop those questions in at any time, and I will make sure that Laura and Claudia get to answer them. So Laura, do you want to introduce yourself first?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Laura Bowe, and I'm the Director of Global Education at King. And essentially, our office works to bring global perspectives into the student experience, whether that's it within the classroom, outside of the classroom, through travel, or other opportunities. And we've had this program essentially in formalized nature at the school since 2013. I look forward to your questions, and what I really appreciate about this work is connecting students to their interests in this area.
Hi there, my name is Claudia Leiden, and I am the Department Chair for World Languages. And we offer, as Nina touched upon, we offer World Languages pre-K through 12, where the focus in the lower school is primarily Spanish, but then in 5th grade, students get to try French and Mandarin for a trimester. And then we offer all 3 languages, French, Mandarin, and Spanish, grades 6 through 12.
Thank you both. I'm going to ask each of you to talk about our graduation distinctions in your respective areas, but just for our participants who may or may not know what I mean by graduation distinctions, I thought I'd just give an overview of what those are. So King offers 6 different areas where kids can sort of concentrate would be one word to say it, but it doesn't take the place of their liberal arts curriculum. So the kids are all taking math, science, English, history, world languages, all the regular classes. And of course, they have electives as well. But students who are particularly interested in one of those 6 areas are able to spend some time both through their clubs and sort of external time, also through the coursework that they do, and then certain things such as global trips, and they would participate as well. And all of the distinctions culminate in a capstone project, and it really allows them to follow a little bit of a roadmap with some choice, which is great, but a little bit of a roadmap on how to really go as deep as they can into these areas of interest. And also it shows colleges that they're pursuing these areas with intention. So Laura, do you want to start with the global education distinction?
Sure. So for students who've elected to be a Global Studies Distinction candidate, there are 3 areas that the requirements fall into: curriculum, community engagement, and a capstone project. I actually would love to show my screen for a moment so you can see some of this in action as I tell you about it. So let me just pull that up. So in terms of the curriculum, in the upper school, we have global electives across the disciplines. Some interesting ones include international economics, environmental science, we have human rights and documentary film. And then beyond that, students can engage in opportunities outside of the classroom. And just to show an example, I have the Japanese Exchange Club here on the left, where this relates to Claudia's work a bit because the students did some language learning with a local Japanese instructor. And in this club, students can decide if they would like to also participate in our travel program to Japan, which occurs every 2 years. On the right, you can see an example of a capstone project. For this, students choose a global topic which interests them and are guided through the research process with a mentor, and then present their findings to a targeted audience that may have an interest in this area. So this student here presented as part of the grade 5 chemistry unit on ocean acidification because his research had been around climate change. I'm also advising 2 students this year who were awarded the Tom Main Fellowship, and their topic is around food and water security. And all of the capstone includes secondary research as well as conducting interviews with individuals in the field.
Thanks, Laura. Claudia, how about the world languages distinction?
So with world languages, basically what that means is students study more than one language in the upper school. So you choose one language, you study it for 4 years, and then you pick up a second language, which you'll study for 3 years. You can switch between honors and non-honors. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be in an honors track. It's just as Nina mentioned, you are showing that you want to dig deeper and you're committed to this work. So we welcome it. And as Laura mentioned, and Nina, we do offer, require a capstone project at the end of the unit. And I was thinking actually of a project that tied into something with global ed, because students also have the opportunity, if they choose not to do just world language, but they want to do a dual distinction between world languages and global ed, they can do that as well, where instead of studying 4 and 3, they study 4 years of one language and 2 years of a second language. And then that third year is filled with requirements in the global ed area. We had a student a couple of years ago that was very interested in the economics of Argentina, and she studied in Argentina. She did her capstone in English and actually presented in the school on Argentina's economy. And then she gave her capstone in Spanish to the World Language Department. And so that was, I mean, it was absolutely amazing. It was one of the most fabulous ones we've seen in a while. So that was really cool. We do like our students to do a trip as well. And what am I missing? And actually, if you are doing the distinction, whether it's just the world language distinction or the dual distinction, they need to be languages that are offered here at King. So Spanish, Mandarin, and French.
And actually, I'm going to wait. I was going to ask a follow-up question, but I'm going to wait and ask that in a little bit. Laura, can you talk a little bit more deeply about how our lower and middle schools incorporate global education?
Sure. I would first just say global education is so integrated across the divisions. And in terms of curriculum, we have competencies around which the curriculum is shaped. Those come from some of our professional associations and support students in strengthening their ability to engage in research, communicate their ideas, recognize multiple perspectives, and take action in some form. So just as I did before, I'd love to show some ways in which this exists across the disciplines. I would also say that identity formation is a big part of global education across the divisions as students are thinking about and reflecting on who they are, how they relate to others, what their role is in their community. And I wanted to highlight a few examples. Here in the lower school on the left, you can see my art colleague facilitated exchange with her 4th grade class, and they connected with 2 international classrooms, one in India and one in Ireland, and they had what they called an artifact video conference, where the students thought deeply about their family, their traditions, their heritage, and brought in an object that mattered deeply to them and presented it to their international peers. And all of the students thought about kind of cultural differences as well as commonalities. And this will be brought into the 4th grade curriculum later in the year when they have a unit that's about the movement of people and ideas. Moving to the middle school, similar themes exist, but what I wanted to highlight was my math colleague who traveled to Ghana this past summer as part of her professional development sabbatical she was awarded, and she's finding ways of bringing in real-world math contexts to her classes and ways in which math exists in so many ways around us from her experiences in Ghana. The students will do math world journals, and this will become an interdisciplinary activity that will support the students in preparing for a culminating grade 8 annual tradition where all students participate in a Model United Nations activity. So they'll build up their knowledge of the countries they research throughout the year. And then finally on the right, I have an upper school example just to show a collaboration that actually my global studies students did with our nuclear and high energy science elective, where they researched a nuclear disaster and brought in both scientific and social science perspectives and presented to each other different impacts within these domains so that they were looking at one topic, but within their respective fields.
Thank you, Laura. Claudia, occasionally we get a student who might have been given a language waiver, a world language waiver in a previous school, or through some sort of testing have discovered that they might have a learning difference that could interfere with their learning world language. Could you share a little bit how we think about that at King?
Sure. So basically, if a student has a documented learning disability or difference from a neuropsych evaluation, and they bring that at the start of the year when they're filling out the course, requirements. It's usually brought to our attention, preferred right away, so we can determine if that is in writing, and the family and the student decide to exercise the waiver, then that's it from the get-go. There are families who say, he does or she does have a waiver, their student has a waiver, but they want to try. If that's the case, then they're in it and committed, and that grade does go on their transcript. So we ask families, I think it's best to work in partnership and to know from the get-go what the situation is if there is a language waiver, because then we can best serve the student to help them out and to find what works best in their schedule as far as finding a balance and rigor.
Thank you. And we do have some students who are taking American Sign Language, is that correct? Not for credit?
There are some that take American Sign Language for credit, and that is offered. That's not a 3-year commitment, and because our language requirement is you need to study a language, the languages we offer for 3 years, up to the 3rd level. I think American Sign Language goes to 2, I believe. So yes, that is an option, and that is something that we encourage if they do have a waiver.
Great, thank you. Laura, can you please just give us an overview of this year's global trips? I feel like it's unfair because we do different trips on different years. So if you want to bring a couple in from other years, feel free to, because I know you are passionate about all of the trips we take.
Sure. So firstly, I would just say that the trips are really an extension of the school experience, and they all have learning outcomes, a purpose. They're connected to a class or a club on campus. And let me just pull up my images of this year's offerings. So our travel programs occur in the summer. They may be 1 or 2 weeks in duration, and we offer them for middle school in grade 8 and then upper school grades 9 through 11. To the left, I have this year's middle school travel programs, which actually occur every year. We have an outdoor adventure program that's an outdoor and adventure experiential learning opportunity that will have a rotating rotating location. And this year it will be in Shenandoah National Park. Last year, you can see featured here, it was in New Hampshire. But it's really incredible what the students do in preparation prior to travel. They become a sort of cohort and they learn wilderness skills, they build up their group dynamics, and they do hiking and different outdoor activities and just really have a meaningful experience and learn more about themselves and our environment. And then at the bottom, there's the other middle school program, which occurs each year, and that is in Costa Rica. They engage with local organizations when they're in the country, doing some service opportunities and also learning about the environment and the culture. They have a sort of book club in the time leading up to their travel so that they're really learning about the place that they're going and are more informed and engaged when there. This summer for the upper school, we have 4 programs in the visual and performing arts, and then sort of in the languages and humanities. The Fringe Festival, you can see the last time we had that, they performed our musical Cinderella. This summer, when they go in August, they'll perform our fall play, Midsummer Night's Dream. I attended the dress rehearsal yesterday, and I noticed, even though it takes place in Greece, that the characters wear kilts at one point. And one of my advisees told me that's because they're preparing for Scotland and they're trying to bring a little bit of local flair to their performance. That program has the students also sort of market their play and go around and try to draw up attention. And audiences, as you can see, really love the performances that they hold. Global art for our visual arts students, they visit Paris, Amsterdam, and Venice. Culture in Greece, they'll explore both ancient and modern Greece. And culture and language in China is for our Mandarin language learners as well as global studies students. And they have an opportunity to visit a school and attend classes and get a sense of the experience of the students there. And this year, they're just enrolling right now. And so second semester, they'll start to do that pre-programming that prepares them for the summer. And then they share their findings or experiences with our community when they return next year. So for example, last summer I traveled with the group to Japan and they did a King Talk assembly this year, sharing their experiences. And I did want to just, in closing for this one, read a quote to you all because I think it shows the impact that these travel experiences have for our students. So during that assembly for Japan, one student said regarding her homestay, that brief time in Japan helped me feel part of something bigger than myself, and it continues to shape how I see the world today, with more understanding, curiosity, and a desire to build bridges across cultures. So I think these programs are really special.
Can I?
Thanks. Oh, go ahead. Yep.
I was going to add because I'm inevitably it always comes up. So thank you, Laura. That was amazing. And we had up till about COVID, we ourselves in the language department had established some really good partnerships with schools, both in France and in Spain, that since have dwindled as a result of COVID. And we are currently looking to retain partnerships again so that we will also within a year or two, hopefully by the time some of these prospective families are joining us, would be able to partake in either some sort of a French language and culture trip and a Spanish language and culture trip, both of which, when we've done them in the past, have had immersion components where they had homestay components, which were by far the most meaningful and impactful part of the trip.
And I just want to build on what Claudia shared because her department had such a wonderful exchange with partner schools in France and Spain. And in fact, prior to COVID, we had groups from those schools come to our campus and stay with King families. It was really a beautiful exchange, and they would attend classes. They'd go to lower school to do a little bit of language learning. So it's really a wonderful connection we have.
I one of the leaders from one of the Spain trip we became good friends as well. She would stay with our family. So it is meaningful and impactful for us educators as teachers as well. So we look forward to doing that again in the future.
That reminds me, Laura, I think when we were talking about the trip last summer to France and Switzerland, you told me that a lot of the kids are they're offered either a homestay or they can stay at a hotel, and a number of students are sort of nervous and they go the hotel route, and then they either switch if they can or regret it because the kids who are bold enough to do the homestay really love it, and it's a highlight of their trip. Am I remembering that correctly?
Yes, in fact, when we had our King Talk assembly, the group who traveled to Japan and the group who traveled to France and Switzerland presented, and they could choose what they wanted to share about how impactful the experience was. The majority shared the homestay connection. And afterwards, so many students approached me to find out about this year's travel programs and if there was a homestay. And I also saw one boy who had gone to France, and I said, "Oh, how was your homestay?" And he said, "I did the hotel, and I wish I'd done the homestay now. I regret that."
Yeah.
So it is something that they can be a bit apprehensive about. But what I would say is, again, to prepare them for the time there, we actually have Zooms with our partner school and breakout rooms where they can have conversations and get to know the students and feel that more reassured for when they are there in person.
Again, to tack on to that, I have to say, as a witness to that and being in that assembly, that was one thing that stood out to me as well. I found that very remarkable because it seemed unrehearsed, and it was just amazing. And I think that spoke volumes because I think to get the best um, sense of what's going on when students hear from their peers, I think that really speaks a lot and can be so influential. And this is in such a positive way. And again, thank you, Laura, for sharing the fact that obviously these families are vetted. We work closely with them, and we build relationships and build community before the actual trip itself. So it's super important and really an amazing experience.
Thank you so much. And just as a reminder, participants, feel free to put some questions in the Q&A because I'm just about out of the questions that I prepared, and we want to make sure everything that you want to know you learn in this 30-minute video or conference here. Claudia, I started to ask this earlier and then I thought I'd hold off, but sometimes we have students who want to pursue a language that we don't offer. Can you share a little bit of how we are able to support that and maybe how we're not able to support that in certain cases?
Sure, sure. Absolutely. As I sort of touched upon it. We both touched upon it. So we do require students to take one of the languages offered here in order to fulfill the graduation requirements. So French, Mandarin, or Spanish. However, if a student wants to take on an additional language, they can do so through our online partnerships with Global Online Academy or One Schoolhouse. So that can be an option, but that is usually the second language that they're picking up and not the one that's required for to fulfill the graduation requirement. Yeah.
And sometimes we have students who are coming in 10th or 11th grade who've already started a language at a different school that we don't offer. And I just would encourage, if you're in that situation, to make sure to talk to us during the admission process about that, because we do have there's sometimes languages that we don't really have the perfect program for you to continue it. If you're coming in 10th grade, we would love you to do 3 years live. We really think that's a better experience. So they're just sort of nuances that I think are better chatted about during the admission process than once you're in September signing up for classes. So just sort of something to keep in mind if you're one of the families who might be bringing a 10th or 11th grade over. Laura, were you going to say something?
I just wanted to build further on Global Online Academy, that for our global distinction, students have required courses that they take and elective courses that they take. And one of their electives can be through Global Online Academy if they would like to pursue this. And there's one student I've been advising who took a marketing course last year where it was focused on sustainable brands. And this year she's looking at global healthcare models. So it just gives you kind of, if you really love global topics and you want to exhaust all of your options, it gives you even additional specialized areas that you can engage in global learning. She's taken a range of classes at King too, including global art. She's taken environmental science. So students really are able to delve into global topics through a lot of different options.
Thank you, Laura. That's helpful. Claudia, could you talk a little bit about our approach to teaching world languages in terms of how immersive it is, what the sort of entry levels might look like versus honors, for families just trying to get a sense of, and I guess maybe you should talk a little bit about the lower school and how that builds up to the upper school, if that makes sense.
Sure.
We have some lower school families on the call.
Yeah,
So.
no worries. Well, I mean, what I like to say when I've given presentations in the middle school and to other families before, and even during back to school night, is that if you think about it, how do most of us learn our native language? We don't learn it through books and reading and writing, right? It's all by practicing just speaking, and it's completely immersive. So then that is our approach in the lower school. It's more of a what we call a FLES model, foreign language in the elementary school, where they meet twice a week. And it's done through projects and project-based learning, role playing, and we conduct the classes primarily in the target language, so in Spanish. And then it's the same approach once they get to 5th grade and when they try the semesters for Mandarin and for French. And then once we move to the middle school, obviously there's more reading and writing involved, but we build upon what students have already learned. And there's a lot of spiraling, a lot of repetition. We always try to meet the students where they're at. We try to use the model, follow the ACTFL model, which is the National Association of Language Learning. So it's 90%, 80 to 90% speech in the target language, French, Mandarin, Spanish. And then we really try to reserve speaking English only for giving instructions, or if we see a student is really, really struggling. That's not to say, obviously, we don't help them and meet them where they're at if we really see that there's something that there's just no communication happening. But you'd be amazed to see how these kids really do pick up, because studies have shown the earlier they're exposed to it, the more quickly they pick it up and internalize the language. So that's generally our approach to it. We really do try to speak as much of the language in class as possible and bring that out of our students so that they have the best and most immersive experience as possible.
And I
Yes,
just wanted,
yeah.
I just wanted to say that Claudia's colleague in the lower school just did a wonderful project-based learning unit on flavors and ingredients of Latin America, and each grade did a totally different form of a project that's on display in the hallways of the lower school. And it's just really wonderful, showing a demonstration of their knowledge and culture as they're learning the language. And I saw the children, they were so proud of what they'd done, and they look forward to the class and the opportunity to learn in this area.
So thank you for bringing that up, Laura. That reminds me, because we do, as department chair, I do oversee the pre-K through 12, and I've in meeting with our lower school teacher earlier this year, we talked about this project and how excited she was to have it come to fruition. And we decided it would be really cool to have it come full circle. And then when my students in the spring will be doing a unit on, we basically in reviewing grammar and vocabulary, it's implicit in the instruction. So we try to approach it from the cultural end as well, similar to the way it's done in the lower school. And so when that happens, we want to have those lower school kids meet the upper school kids and teach our upper school students what they know as an intro before we start the unit, to give some kids some ideas as to what they can do, and also to give the lower school kids an opportunity to show off what they know. And we thought it'd be a great way to build community and to have them just to continue, building proficiency.
It's so funny, Laura. I was going to mention that too, because I just walked through this morning, and I don't think you mentioned it, but it's worth noting is that the kids created the food that they are working on out of pottery.
Yeah.
It really was a truly interdisciplinary example of how the teachers collaborate together, and the kids really reap the benefits of being able to demonstrate their knowledge, learn in an engaging way, and then demonstrate their knowledge in multiple different ways. And see how things get tied together, which I think is really so much about what global education and world language is about, is making these connections and understanding how we're not, in a silo here in North Stamford, Connecticut, that everything is connected to each other and to all the different disciplines that we study. So that's a fun way for us to finish up. Thank you so much for joining us today. Laura and Claudia, thank you so much for joining us. To participants, if you have more questions or want to be in touch with either Laura or Claudia, please let me know. I'd be happy to connect you. Thanks so much and have a great day.